A people's democracy, once an inspiration to the world, turns out to be a fragile dream when an impeachment proceeding backfires and issues in authoritarian rule. The recent history of Brazil resonates kind of spookily for us in the US. For filmmaker Petra Costa, however, though, this story is personal. The daughter of revolutionary militants, she was born at the end of Brazil's military dictatorship. With the unprecedented access she was able to get, Costa documented the rise and fall of Brazil's Workers' Party and its charismatic leader, Lula da Silva, the impeachment of Brazil's first female president, his successor, Dilma Rousseff, and the rise of President Jair Bolsonaro, who has ushered in, as she puts it, a new era of rule by the Bible, the bullet, and the banks. Here's the trailer from The Edge of Democracy.
Brazilian democracy and I are almost the same age. I thought that in our 30s, we would both be standing on solid ground.
Petra, for the first time, voting in the historical election.
I was 19 when Lula got elected. I remember the excitement. It felt like a huge step in our democratic path. 20 million people leaving poverty. Unemployment reached the lowest number in history, and Brazil rises as a major player on the world stage.
The most popular politician on earth.
To succeed him, he chooses Dilma Rousseff, who becomes our first female president.
Todos nós seremos julgados pela história.
It felt like a change of symbols. But something in our social fabric started to change. The country divided into two parts. And this wall would rip us apart. The party is soon caught in a corruption scandal, the greatest investigation in the country's history.
O que vão pensar de nós?
Mas o arrependimento eu tenho de ter feito mais.
Crimes include fraud, slavery, even homicide.
One president impeached, another in prison. Our democracy is crumbling.
Essa farsa sexista.
Estou cada dia mais vivo perante a opinião pública.
I fear our democracy was nothing but a short-lived dream.
The Edge of Democracy was singled out by the New York Times as one of the 10 best documentaries of 2019. Joining me now is its director, Petra Costa. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you, Laura.
The film is marvelous. Just searing, shocking, and as I said, kind of eerily prophetic, although I hope that's not how history will go here in the US. Talk about its origins for you. You say at the beginning you're kind of the same age as Brazilian democracy. You were kind of born and brought up together.
Yes, when I was growing up, my mother used to wear a t-shirt written, "Give me democracy or give me death." And I grew up believing that democracy was my birthright, that my parents had spent a decade fighting for against the military dictatorship and then trying to establish democracy in Brazil. And I kind of took it for granted, as I think many of us did. Until 2016, it became clear that it was actually very fragile. And it started for me when I was filming a protest, one of those protests in favor of Dilma's impeachment, and saw thousands of Brazilians dressed with the colors of the flag and singing national anthems, and many of them asking for the return of the military, which I thought was like a sleeping beast that would not wake up. And there it was, waking up in the most horrific way. And from there, I entered into a rabbit hole that took 3 years of my life.
We have that clip. Let's play it.
These were the first images I filmed. By deafness or blindness, it was my first contact with this unrest. It left me asking, what had shifted? so that a boy and a girl have to be removed from a protest just because they're wearing the color red.
Tá aplaudindo o quê, moça?
Quem foi preso?
Quem?
Não sei, petista.
Por que ele pode ser preso?
Hã?
Por que ele foi preso?
Porque está defendendo uma coisa que nós estamos querendo.
From this point on, the country divided into two irreconcilable parts.
Describe the two Brazils that you say emerged at that moment.
Well, the country divided into two sides. One was the side that was, I believe, wanting for the continuation of a process of diminishing social inequalities. Brazil is based in 300 years of slavery. We were the country that most imported slaves in the world. And during the progressive years of Lula and Dilma, there were many shortcomings to their government, but 30 million people rose out of misery. There was affirmative action where blacks and people of color were entering into the university for the first time. And we wanted for those rights to continue to be progressing. On the other side, there were people who were admittedly talking, as I have in the film, saying that they felt racism against whites because blacks were having affirmative action to get into university, and they felt they didn't want to pay more rights to their domestic workers. So it's kind of a collapse of a class struggle that was dormant for many years while everyone was getting richer. As soon as the economy started to stagnate, the rich did not want to give up on their secular privileges. And behind that, there's also things that we're starting to understand, which is how the social media was manipulated, how fake news played a huge role, not just in creating the sensation that that Brazil was becoming a Venezuela, which was definitely not the case. Besides the shortcomings of Dilma and Lula's government, which I think the shortcomings was not doing political reform, not doing structural changes, but it was never affronting democratic rules.
A lot of people think, because they depended on US media, that they both, Lula and Dilma, were impeached for corruption or, sentenced for corruption. Mm-hmm. Why did they end up out of power and in jail in Lula's case?
Well, there was systemic corruption, and in Brazil, while in the US lobby is legal, in Brazil it is illegal, and all the parties were funding themselves through illegal means. However, that was throughout the political spectrum. Every single party was doing that.
And this is a country with dozens of parties.
Yes.
20.
More than 30.
More than 30.
Yes.
Everyone's dependent on coalitions. Everyone's dependent on power that has to be carefully negotiated.
Exactly. And what the confusion that was created was that there was a widespread rumor that Dilma was being impeached for corruption. When I entered the Congress, I was confused about that myself. It was only through days there that I understood that the crime she was being accused was fiscal makeup, something all presidents had done before her. And then she is condemned by 60% of congressmen who are themselves being investigated for corruption. There's a very revealing audio leak in the film that shows one congressman saying, "We have to impeach her or we're all going to jail," because she was letting loose this operation that was investigating corruption throughout all the political spectrum and taking many politicians to jail. And other presidents before her would just have stopped that operation straightforward.
So she unleashes Operation Car Wash, which is an investigation into corruption. She refuses to stop it, even though it's going into places that get dangerously close to her. She herself is only ever charged with financial maneuvering to pay public debts, because at the same time, she is trying to continue the Lula initiative, the Workers' Party initiative of reducing poverty, reducing interest payments, and trying to equalize more a very unequal society. What about Lula?
Lula, there's recent revelations by The Intercept that show how the judge that condemned Lula was most likely collaborating and orienting the prosecutors throughout the entire process of the investigation, saying how they should portray Lula's case to the media, coordinating when the audio leaks should come out. So in every single step, interfering with the political landscape in Brazil in completely illegal ways. And the most revealing fact is that after that entire process, and after Lula is condemned in a faster speed than any other politician in Brazilian history, that judge becomes Minister of Justice of the new President Bolsonaro.
Judge Moro. The details of all of this are laid out brilliantly in your film, and you have extraordinary access because of who your family are and because of your understanding of the situation. I urge everybody to look at the entire film. And one of the reasons I do so is not just because we care about Brazil, but because so many questions are raised in it about how much change can anybody make, any political initiative, party. I mean, Lula says in the film, if we had wanted a revolution like other revolutions, we could have simply gone outside of the rule of law, had a military force, he doesn't say this, but line people up against the wall, got rid of them. Instead, we tried to play by the rules. We started a party. I abide by justice. You see him turning himself in. Powerful speech he gives when none of his followers want him to leave.
Eles decretaram a minha prisão. Não adiantam tentar evitar que eu ande por esse país, porque tem milhões e milhões de Lula, de Bolo, de Manuela, de Dilma Rousseff para andar por mim. Não adianta tentar acabar, sabe, com as minhas ideias. Elas já estão pairando no ar e não tem como prendê-las. Não adianta tentar parar o meu sonho, porque quando eu parar de sonhar, eu sonharei pela cabeça de vocês e pelos donos de vocês. Não adianta achar que tudo vai parar o dia que o Lula tiver infarte. É bobagem, porque o meu coração baterá pelo coração de vocês, e são milhões de corações. Os poderosos podem matar uma, duas ou três rosas, mas jamais conseguirão deter a chegada da primavera, e a nossa luta é em busca da primavera.